afternoon.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, so I know I've been out, for a while. It's good to be back. What I also noticed is that tomorrow is the last day for Thanksgiving break. Some of us probably need that break. Can you amen somebody? All right, so
Amen.
we're gonna, okay, amen. That's fine. All right, so we're gonna finish this up. This is a sneak alert. We didn't really mention this to you, but this is the last thing that's in government based on the standards. Okay.
Yes.
The next 2 weeks are going to be like projects and easy stuff. Awesome. Easy way to get ready. So we're going to finish this. We're going to finish this lecture. We're going to talk about political parties and elections. If you look here, these are our standards. Standards are always listed on the board as well. Okay. We're going to demonstrate knowledge of local, state, and national elections. Okay. Our learning targets is what essentially we need to learn. What the goal is after this lecture. Okay, we're going to describe the historical development of the political parties. Okay, whoa. Okay, and then also describe the nomination election process. Okay, we kind of took notes on Monday, correct? Okay, so we should have a general understanding of this. Okay, so what I have here is a pretest. Okay, don't freak out. Okay, this will be easy participation grade. Yes. So guess what? If you do it, guess what you made? Awesome.
Is it going in the grade book?
This will go in the grade book. Yes.
Wait, I know.
Watch your eyes. Yes, you want?
Are we allowed to take pictures?
No, I'll sign this.
Yes, high school.
Everybody have one? Awesome. All right, so I'm going to test your knowledge a little bit, okay? So we gave you some notes. We've shown you some videos, just like we always do. This is to test your knowledge, pretty much know your understanding. You got 8 minutes. Simply just complete the pre-test. No pressure. Any questions?
No.
All right, let's do it.
You're wrong.
Somebody's knocking.
Try to open the door.
Open it. Oh my god.
Yes. Yeah. No. Some of them might be, but most of them aren't. You what? Yeah, you just like match them on a straw. Or so you do that, we just put H. Right there. That makes sense? That one is not H. Well, I'll just give you an example. So like the first one, political party. Okay.
That would be, people.
Correct. So you put P. That was right. Okay. You good? No? That's okay, it's a pretest, man. Take your time. make sure you put your name on this too. Some of this, got just over 3 minutes left for those of you who still need time. Who did that? We'll go over this thing. Anybody need extra time? A little over 2 minutes left? No? Okay. All right. So just by the looks of everybody and just walking around, notice that people were done. How do we feel about it?
Not very
Oh, you.
well.
Some people said easy. Some raise your hand if you think it was easy. Some raise your hand if you think it was hard. Raise your hand if you think it was middle. Okay, cool. So what I want you to do here, I want you to pass up your pretest for me.
No one looked at my answer.
Quick. Which group would be the fastest? Hurry.
Obviously,
Make sure your name's on it.
Hey, coach, be right
All right. Anybody else? Awesome. All right. So just a heads up, y'all pay attention. I'm going to go over this. I'm simply just going to draw the line of the letter that's supposed to correspond with. Make sure you pay attention. This might be what you see later on in the week for your post-test or your test or your quiz. All right. So this is what it looks like, okay? So just by walking around, notice some of you got it right. Okay, so let's see how far we can go on your end, and then I'll help you out. Cool? All right. So number one, okay, political party. Which letter represents the correct definition? Yes, Leslie. Huh? B. Any naysayers?
Nay.
Okay, what's your
Nay.
answer? C. Anybody else? One more. Last final offer. All right, it's B. Good job. Okay. It's B. Okay. It's a group of people which aim to elect officials to carry out their policies, hence politics. Okay. All right. Number two, consensus. Huh?
F.
Any naysayers?
F.
Going once. You're looking at me like you think. Going twice. All right, it's F.
Oh.
It's F. Okay. Y'all ever heard the saying, "We have come to a consensus"? That means we came to agreement. Okay, it's more than one person. Okay. So if you hear that, that means you agree. Okay. Number three, partisanship. What? D. Any naysayers? Huh? E. A.
X.
It's E.
Oh.
Is that right? Are you serious?
In favor of one side. Aligned to a political party. Okay. If you are aligned with either Democratic, Green Party, Republican Party, you're known as a partisan. Excuse me. Number four, suffrage. Huh? B as in boy.
No,
D as in dog. Going once, going twice. Any naysayers? It's D. the right to vote. For your fun fact, which amendment did give women the right to vote?
19.
Wow, it's amazing. All right, look at you. Good job. All right,
19 my favorite.
number 5, bipartisan.
That's why.
Bipartisan.
You're against someone. D.
Wait, who said it? Somebody said it.
A.
Somebody said A. Any naysayers? 1, 2, wait a minute.
I thought it was H.
H, it's A.
D.
Easy way to remember this. Okay? Partisans 1, by, how many people was that?
2. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, I got that. Okay? Next one, 6, incumbent. Incumbent.
G.
Huh? G as in, like, Georgia?
Yes.
Any naysayers? 1, 2, good, perfect. G, incumbent, okay? That's an official currently in office, okay? True story. Alright, I voted in this past election. One of the options on there was, y'all remember named Doug Collins?
Yes.
Associated representative for Georgia for our district, Gainesville. He was an incumbent, meaning that he was already in office, okay? And on that ballot, it was just him, okay? Because there was another person you can write in, but for that ballot, it was just him. He was known as an incumbent. So if you see, when you guys get old enough, you vote, it says incumbent, that means they're already in office. You're just re-electing them if they win, okay? 7, gerrymandering. Huh? C as in cat. Anybody else? Yes, no, over here. We good? It's C. Manipulation of boundaries to benefit one class, one party or class, okay? Y'all ever seen like the commercials where somebody's bashing another elector? Okay? That's a form of gerrymandering, okay? Now they're not making threats, but if I say something and you guys were running against me, you can say, Coach P said this, well, he's with this, I'm actually for this. Vote for me. That's gerrymandering, okay? Now last one, electorate.
I think it's H.
H. Okay, why do you think that? It's the last one. Okay, so all people are able to vote. Perfect. All right. Number 2. Which political party is usually associated with fewer laws regulating morality, greater social welfare, and law regulating business? Is it A? Okay, if you think it's A, raise your hand. You think it's B?
Not too cocky.
What is it?
A.
An answer for Coach Conley? It is B.
That must be 8.
So, if we got that, if this political party is Democratic, number 3, which political party is usually associated with pro-business practices, less social welfare, and law regulating morality? Republican. Give yourself a hand. That was awesome. Perfect. Good job. Good job. All right. So look, hands up. Okay. So what I'm doing, since you guys participated and did so well on it. Okay. Some of you probably didn't, but it's okay. You'll get 100 in the grade book for that for participation. Okay. Now what am I doing with this? Okay. I'm taking this. I'll go home. I'll grade this. And then I'll compare the results to when we do the actual quiz, the actual test, okay, at the end of the week. Now, there's going to be a little more vocab on it. I just wanted to give you a pre-example of what it looks like. So make sure under week 14, look under the vocab words. Cool? Awesome. All right. So it's been a while since we watched one of these videos. I just want you to watch it over Crash Course Government. I said economics. That's what I just came out of. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I teach you. This talks about the political parties we just talked about, okay? The left side, the left wing, those are known as Democrats. The right is more Republicans, all right? So we're going to watch this video. What I want you to do is take a sheet of paper out right now. Hurry up.
Don't rub it off.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop, stand still. Everybody got paper? Oh, we do? All right. Here we go. Now, that's what I want. It's your task. This is your task. I want you to give me simply 10 facts from this video. 10 things. 10 things you picked up. Cool? Yep. And,
Is it great?
yep. So look, here we go. 10 things. It could be the simplest things, it could be the more complex things, just 10 things I would take from it. Cool? Ready, set, go.
The name is Digital Symbol.
Hi, I'm Craig, and this is Crash Course Government and Politics, and today we're going to talk about parties. Woo! Yeah! No, not those kind of parties. We're talking about political parties, which can be a lot less fun. Woo. So today we're talking about why we have political parties and the role of parties in American politics. But before we dive into the pool, some would say a cesspool, that is political parties, let's have a definition. Political party, a team of politicians, activists, and voters whose goal is to win control of government. So kind of an important point. The goal of a party is to control government, and in the U.S. that means electing people who agree with and usually are members of the party. So above everything else, parties exist to win elections. Parties don't mainly focus on influencing policies, although particular policies are often associated with particular parties. Influencing elected officials is mainly the job of interest groups, who we'll talk about soon. For now, let's keep in mind that political parties and interest groups are not the same thing. So let's look at 3 reasons why we have political parties. 1, 2, 3, I do know, I'll tell you in a second. First, we create political parties to facilitate collective action in the electoral process. Given that parties exist to win elections, this is probably the main reason we have them. But what does facilitate collective action in the electoral process mean exactly? Basically, it means that parties make it easier for voters to form groups that will vote in certain ways. Here's an example, albeit one that overgeneralizes a little bit. Just go with it. In general, Republican candidates support policies that are more friendly to business. So if you're a businessman, you know that affiliating yourself with the Republican Party is probably going to benefit you. The second reason given for forming political parties is that they facilitate policy making. This reasoning applies to elected members who belong to political parties, not to voters. So membership in a party allows politicians to work together. It's easier for Democrats to form alliances with other Democrats, and sometimes these alliances have the added benefit of strengthening the party. Party affiliation can help legislators from different places work together. For example, common Republicanness should make it easier for a Republican from rural Kansas to work with another Republican from suburban Florida. Sometimes, though, party ideology can prevent even members of the same party from working together, as happened in 2008 when Republicans couldn't agree on whether the government should bail out struggling banks. A third...
All right, hold. First of all, this guy needs to take a breath, don't he?
Yeah.
So, all right, so look, so I just wanted to see if he was just talking facts and I just let you get 10 facts, would we get 10 facts? Probably not.
I've already run 3 full sentences.
Can we get 5?
Yes.
I can get 10. We get
If
extra
you have 7,
credit.
perfect. If
We
you
get
got
extra
if you got
credit,
more
we
than
get
if you got more than 5, we'll talk about that.
Third, and I must say not altogether convincing reason why we have political parties is to deal with the problem of politicians' ambition. According to this idea, parties provide a structure, maybe even a career ladder for politicians, so that they're not always acting in their own self-interest. The fact that the party provides different leadership possibilities and some sense of discipline prevents ambitious politicians with largely similar views from competing against each other, like, say, 16 candidates running for president on the same party. Just wouldn't happen. Ever. So that's why political parties exist. But what do? Well, they have 5 main functions in the U.S., and I'll leave it up to you to decide which, if any, is the most important. The eagle doesn't get to decide. Eagle doesn't get to decide anything. So here's the list. 1. Recruit candidates. 2. Nominate candidates. 3. Get out the vote. 4. Facilitate electoral choice. 5. Influence national government. The first thing that parties have to do if they want to win elections is find candidates. This is a 2-step process involving recruiting and nominating. We've already mentioned that in order to be a good candidate for office, you generally have to have an unblemished personal record, like me, or at least be really good at heartfelt apologies. I don't have an unblemished record, and I'm very sorry about that. Also, you need the ability to raise money. Of course, in order to avoid any problems with campaign financing, it's helpful to have money yourself, but why spend your own money if you can convince people to give money to your campaign? Maybe print out some hats. Merch works. Merch helps raise money. There are lots of people who want to run for office, although there's some debate about whether we're really getting the best candidates. The pay isn't great, and neither is the prestige anymore. And then there's the scrutiny that a run for office puts you and your family through. Parties play an important role in sifting through all the people who want to run and picking those who have the best chance of winning. Nomination is the process through which a potential candidate is actually chosen to represent a particular party in an election. When we talk about nominations in the U.S., we're mostly talking about the presidency, because that's the only office that goes through the formal nomination process. But technically, congressmen and senators are nominated by their parties to run as well. There are 3 ways that a candidate for president can be nominated. In the old days, presidential candidates were nominated at a convention, or caucus, which are gatherings of party members governed by rules. Conventions still occur every 4 years, but they're largely ceremonial these days because
it's 6.
Areas like New York, only Democrats can vote in the Democratic primary. And since in many districts one party is overwhelmingly dominant, the primary winner is very likely to win the general election too. In states with open primaries, members of any party can vote in the primary, which sounds great because it encourages more participation, but it also opens up opportunities for mischief. For example, if there's a strong Republican candidate up against a weak Republican candidate in a state with open primaries, Democrats can turn up and vote for the weak Republican in the hopes that if he wins, he will have less of a chance in the general election running against a Democrat. Sneaky. In presidential elections, the winner of a primary election will be assigned a certain number of party delegates. Delegates are non-elected party members who actually nominate the candidates at the convention. The delegates are usually pledged to vote for the candidate who won the primary in their state, at least on the first ballot, and majority rules in nominating. This is why we see so much election coverage of primaries and why some states, like New Hampshire, try so hard to have their primaries early. Once a candidate has sewn up enough delegates, he or she becomes the nominee, and the convention serves largely as a formality. Although the primary system is more democratic than the convention, it still has problems. Even though there's more opportunity for participation, that doesn't mean people actually participate. In fact, only about 25% of those eligible to vote in primary elections actually do, and these tend to be the more ideologically extreme members of the parties, because to them, winning elections matters most. So, if only partisan voters show up, we tend to get uber-partisan candidates. And because they have to win bruising primaries before they even get to the general election, these candidates tend to be aggressive and uncompromising. That's good when you're competing in an election, but not so good when you're trying to work with other people to craft policies, or in very rare cases, legislation. This is why many people think that primaries add to political polarization in the U.S. Thanks, Thought Bubble. You got my vote. There's a third way that a person can become a candidate, but it's a long and dangerous path. Hey, Stan, zoom the camera in as I say that. It's a long and dangerous path. A person can run as an independent, and if they get enough signatures on a petition, they can become a candidate. You're more likely to see this in congressional races, but even then, it's not super common. It's also really not that long and dangerous, as we implied in that last shot. The third thing that parties do is mobilize voters, also known as getting out the vote. This is pretty obvious because you can't elect a candidate if you don't get people out to vote for them. Parties get out the vote through direct mail, email, and advertisements, and they can also help with voter registration drives. The main thing the party does in terms of getting out the vote is coordinate volunteers to help encourage voting. If you want to help on a campaign or with an election effort, your local party office is a good place to start. Another good place to start is getting out of bed. Getting out the bed is a campaign we should have. Parties also help to facilitate electoral choice. Basically, a political party acts sort of like a brand, so knowing which party a candidate represents acts as a kind of shorthand for voters in the same way that seeing, say, a Netflix logo lets you know that you're about to chill. I'm not going to go into what each party stands for right now, but let's just say that knowing that a candidate is a Republican or a Democrat allows you to figure out pretty much what they stand for, even if you don't know anything about the candidate. Political parties even help nonpartisan voters by narrowing down political choices and making things easier. If you want to, you can choose a candidate by answering two relatively simple questions. Which party better represents my interests and values, and which candidate belongs to that party. Finally, believe it or not, political parties have a role in the way the national government actually works. Party membership is really important in Congress. Parties determine who the speaker is, since he or she always comes from the majority party and is chosen by a vote of members of that party. Parties also determine the composition of the committees, and party leaders assign members to those committees. And parties help determine who the chairs of the committees are, and they, along with the speaker and the majority leader in the Senate, largely shape Congress's agenda. The president and his party have a reciprocal relationship. That's the best kind of relationship, and the most fun to say. Reciprocal. The president is the leader of his party, and his personal character and popularity helps to shape the party's brand, for better or worse, and can be used to raise money. On the other side, the party throws its support behind the president's initiatives and helps to elect candidates that support him in Congress. So at their most basic level, parties exist to elect political candidates and thus gain control of the government. In order for them to do this well, they need to provide voters with clear electoral preferences and encourage them to act on those preferences. In a way, this branding function, helping voters to choose between candidate A and candidate B, is what parties are all about. But you're free to disagree, and if you do, go form your own party. You can do whatever you want. It's a party! Woo! Thanks for watching. See you next time. Crash Course Government and Politics is produced in association with people.
All right. Move on. All right. So I want you to flip your paper. Okay? Flip your paper. I want you to copy this. Okay? Simply, you can put K, put a column. W, put a column. L, put a column. Okay? So I want you to put what you know. Okay? Write down what you know. Hence, what you just took notes on. Okay? What you want to know about political parties. Okay? And then what you've learned after this lecture. Okay? Watch your eyes. And then all you're going to do, once you finish that, turn it into me. That will be your ticket out the door. Literally. political party elections, what you want to know about it, and then what you learned. Alright. Good? Done? Once you're done, hand it to me, please. Yeah. Make sure your name's on it. Thank you. Thank you. Come. Yes.
Wait, this is.
Yes. You done? How'd you give it to me? How'd you give it to me? What is this thing? My son's birthday.
Political party.
Did I barely get it done? I got it. A couple days ago. All right, is that everybody? Perfect. All right.